Well, it didn't take very long for this piece of shit game to fail. The service was shut down in less than 2 weeks after its launch, and even before then, no one really even gave a shit about this game to begin with, so it really comes to question, why was this even greenlit in the first place, and why did Sony even bother purchasing the development studio for this game? And on top of that, why did it take them 8 years to make this? So there is a lot to unpack about this game, and I figured, you know what, instead of me just talking about this by myself, I'm gonna have the tag team partner, Jenpachi, join me in discussing this whole shit show that's been going on with this game. And also, funny enough, this also relates to a few other games that have come out recently over the past few weeks or months, and even some games that will be coming out fairly soon.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. You know, as usual, it's always fun making these videos, and honestly, like, is anyone really surprised? In fact, ironically, it actually went down even faster than I thought it would, because, you know, with them losing what, like $200 million or something like that, like, you know, I think at this point we've seen enough to know that DEI doesn't work, it doesn't sell, this shit is ass, it smells like ass, it looks like ass, and no one could tell us that it's roses or flowers, because it is fucking ass. And, you know, like, we have Dustborn. You mentioned other examples of other games that have been failing. Look at Dustborn. It's like, it's kind of funny because it feels like, when are these people going to learn their lesson? People don't want this crap. Just make a good game. You know? Stop telling the fan bases that they're monsters, bigots, all this other extra shit, and just make a good game. You want to promote gay characters and all this weird stuff? Then make a good game and put them in it. Then, why is this the whole game? Why does the whole game lead with this shit? Like, you know, it's just like, I kind of find it laughable. Like, I want to care more, but not only did I not care about this game, but I knew that it was gonna be a dumpster fire and lose a shit ton of money. And I think it's proven. Well, they've proven that it doesn't sell. At this point, it's common sense that it doesn't sell. That should be the common sense approach to development right now.
You're right. These type of games, they never sell. They usually don't. And the only time they ever do sell, or barely sell to the point where they're able to break even, is when there's brand recognition attached to it. Without it, you get, you know, like you had mentioned, Dustborn, which was one of the examples, obviously, I was alluding to earlier. And now with Concord, you even have a single-player game in Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn, which fucking failed, which was also attached to Sweet Baby Inc. So that's another one. You know, the Sweet Baby Kiss of Death. There was also that other one, Tales of Zhao, or whatever the fuck it was, about the African guy or something like that. So it's like, without brand recognition, usually people are not interested in this DEI woke slop. When there is brand recognition, there's people, unfortunately, who are too dumb enough to see it, or refuse to accept that, hey, maybe your favorite franchise, or from your whatever game made by your favorite company, has gone the way of the woke mind virus. No different than other companies like, say, Capcom, or even like the Sony exclusive games like Insomniac, Sony Santa Monica, other studios like Larian Studios, and companies like Bethesda. There's another one, and there's so many you can even name. You know, even Ubisoft. So it's gonna get to a point where you're gonna notice these patterns. You're gonna have to accept that these companies are going in this direction, and it's really up to you whether or not if you're going to support them or not. And yeah, it's very easy to not support a game that's blatantly DEI centered, which being Concord, and of course other games similar to it. And this is why it fails, because they are focused on all the wrong things. There's always something that's not related to whether or not the game is actually going to be good or not, because gameplay, story, all of that, or even whether or not the game even functions and works on launch, all of that goes out the window, because what matters to them, first and foremost, is identity politics. They want to check off as many boxes as they can, cram in their ideologies before even making sure that the game is actually going to be fun, if there's going to be any like interesting game modes, or if there's a story, whether or not the story is going to be good, if the writing is going to be good, the character designs, the character bios, like everything that you would figure that a game should be sure to have, that would actually make people want to purchase your game, or even if it's free to play, make people want to have an incentive to actually download this free to play game, or again, buy whatever game, depending on the price that it is. That's up to the developer to ensure that. And if they can't do that, then you have a problem. And so many of these companies now have problems where they can't sell you on a good game because they're more interested in selling you on ideologies over anything else.
So yeah, like, you know, it's funny you mentioned that, and I agree with you. And I was actually going to mention about the brand recognition, because it's easy to defend something when it's something you are already attached to, right? Or like a brand you already attached to, like Spider-Man 2, for example, has, you know, the Spider-Man branding, or The Last of Us 2, where, you know, the first game was like, you know, pretty much loved. Even though the first game had some DEI stuff in it, it was far less extreme and like not as nuclear as Last of Us 2 was. And even then, it was very mild, right? Like, it was actually, I think they actually tastefully did it in the first game, where, you know, you had a gay character, but not a big deal. You had you know, the part with Ellie or whatever that was DLC or whatever that I didn't even know about, because I didn't even play the DLC when it came out. So, but generally that game's a great story about a father-daughter relationship and whatever. Well, with the second game, you know, we all know it went nuclear, DEI and shit. So, but it's funny that the opposite is true for non-DEI brand games. Like, you have Black Myth, Sun Wukong, which, even though, you know, Sun Wukong is, you know, the Monkey King or whatever, you know, it's a thing people know about, but at least it's, you know, it's still a brand new game, brand new IP or whatever. And you had Stellar Blade, where Stellar Blade was a brand new IP and it did phenomenally well, you know, despite the censorship that happened later. The point is that it wasn't a DEI focused game. So it's just obvious that it doesn't work, it doesn't sell. And if you can't sell it without brand recognition, isn't that kind of a sign that universally people just don't like it and don't want it, and they're just accepting it so that they can play the new Spider-Man game, so that they can play the new Wolverine game? They have to kind of accept it because they know that that's part of the deal that they're getting. I don't think that necessarily equates to to liking it. And it kind of reminds me of with that whole video from BlackRock about forcing behaviors and shit, or the guy from Spider-Man 2 talking about like, oh, we'll give you something you thought you didn't want, but, you know, we'll put it in there and blah blah blah. You know, he went on this diatribe about it, but it kind of shows. It shows that it's at least to some degree effective, because when you have a game like Spider-Man, or you have a game like you know, well, like Spider-Man, I'm gonna use that as an example. When you have a game like Spider-Man, it's clear that people are gonna tolerate almost anything just to play the Star Wars games, just to play the Spider-Man game, just to play whatever. So, you know, I think it illustrates the point that people don't want DEI, and if they have to do so much subversion for it, then that's a clear sign that, you know, it's not working. People don't want it. Let's not lose $200 million on a flop that couldn't even last, what, a full month or something like that? Like, Jesus, man. It's pathetic.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with what you're saying, because it's true. But that reminds me of one of the developers, or rather one of the former developers from the development studio. I think they're called Firewatch or Firewalk Studios. I mean, it really doesn't matter what the name is, because they're gonna be fucking gone anyway. They're gonna be shut down in a matter of months, or absorbed in some other studio. You know, who knows? But, you know, definitely expect some layoffs, and expect this probably they won't be making another game after this, and they really shouldn't be, because, you know, you think about it, 8 years of them making it. I don't know what the fuck Sony was smoking, thinking that, you know, let's purchase this studio and let them continue making this game, and, you know, fund $200 million dollars into this fucking turd. But one of the former developers for the game, she was going back and forth, simping for the game, saying how proud and the usual spiel that they say, that so proud of the colleagues and working and being part of this game and all that, and people were giving her shit for it because the game is shit. So you gotta start praising shit, and you gotta get people who are gonna criticize you because they know that the game is complete and total garbage. If you don't want to be criticized, because people, I'm sorry, but people actually have standards and they notice pattern recognition, so they can see right through this nonsense that we've been fed for several years now. So if you don't want to deal with that, then make better games. But anyway, so she was criticized for even being a part of the game, as she should have been, and she was responding to someone saying that the people who were criticizing her, or the people who didn't like the game, were talentless freaks. And that's pretty funny coming from someone who was a part of a game that was basically made by and for talentless freaks. You look at the characters in this game, they look like freaks. You consider that there have been reports about what the developers do, such as giving them code names, or one of them prefers everyone refer to them as the professor. So you have a development studio of nut jobs making a game that looks like is meant for mental patients. This is insanity, and this is a clear example. I mean, this year alone is a very good example that woke doesn't sell, and that brand recognition does. And if you don't have brand recognition, then what's gonna happen? People ain't gonna buy it. People don't want this shit. The modern audience is practically a ghost town, and it always was. So when you see these companies like Capcom, for example, wanting their games, or specifically with Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster, to reach a modern audience, and you see the changes and the censorship in that game, as much as people want to deny it, like, it's not a big deal, it's not a big deal, what does it matter? Well, here's the thing. If it doesn't matter, then why would they make these changes? So all these companies, when they do all these additional unnecessary changes, X, Y, why are they doing it? They usually don't have a good answer. All it is to align with ESG and DEI, because the more of this diversity, equity, inclusion bullshit that they put into these games, the higher the ESG score goes, and then whatever consulting firms or companies involved with DEI that manages that, or to ensure that it actually is being put in place, that helps them as well. That's really what's keeping them afloat at this point, is a safety net. That is ESG. That is these investors. And once they keep making flop at the flop, like say Ubisoft, for example, these investors are going to pull out, and they're going to close studios down, lay people off, put franchises on hold. The usual. You're going to be seeing a bunch of long written statements on social media in the morning at some point. Yes, that's how it usually is. Just look at Volition. What happened with them?
It's funny you mentioned Dead Rising, because that's another game that has a lot of brand recognition behind it. People love that series. People love Frank West. They love, those games are loved. They're generally loved. People were asking for stuff like this for a while. So that's another example of DEI garbage being tied to, to a established series. And if the game does well, you know what they're going to say. People are going to say, oh, people wanted it. People wanted this. People wanted that. When really they wanted Dead Rising, and they were just tolerating the changes because it meant that they would play a new Dead Rising game. That is not the same as actively wanting it. I haven't heard a single sane person actually say that they want DEI in their games. And a lot of times it's from hack activists that are, when you actually listen to them talk or let them speak, you realize they're all over the place and don't play them to begin with. I mean, there was something about a shop where it was like they took the word lady off of the sign. I don't remember verbatim, but I'll let you say what it was later, because I don't remember verbatim what it was. But they definitely removed the word lady from the sign, implying that there's something wrong. Like, why are you censoring the word lady? Like, what the hell's going on, man? So I think that it's interesting, and I think it's kind of blatant that that's what they're gonna do. You know, if that game does well, they're gonna pretend that people wanted it. They don't have a problem with it. This applies to Silent Hill 2 as well. I don't think that game is gonna do well as they wanted to, but if it does do well, obviously Silent Hill 2 is the biggest name in that series. I think everyone kind of accepts that Silent Hill 2 was like, you know, the big breakout game of the series, or Silent Hill The Room, either one of those. So yeah, like if that does well, people are gonna say it's because of the DEI. I mean, they're gonna say it's because that the DEI didn't matter, or that they, you know, they it's not a problem, it's not an issue. But again, it's really just mental gymnastics to say that they want to, that they'll do anything and they'll say anything. They don't care because they just want to play the new Silent Hill 2 remake. So, you know, brand recognition above everything else, you know, and that's those are two examples of how I think that if either one of those games do well, they're gonna be praising them. They're gonna be saying, "Oh, see, people do want it. People did want that." When in reality, again, it's just that they want to play the new entry in a series that they love. Same way people still defend Star Wars even now. You keep using Star Wars because Star Wars is like the king of like a dead skin suit of a IP at this point.
Back to what you were saying before about, you know, Dead Rising the remaster and what they changed. So in the original, it was referred to, the store was actually referred to as Estelle's Fine Lady Cosmetics, where in the remaster, it is just Estelle's Fine Cosmetics. So that's an example of, you know, the blatant censorship, among other things that are going on within that game. And, you know, there's plenty of other remasters, remakes, or sequels to other games where they usually start changing a lot of things just for the modern day audience that, again, you know, back to what me and you were saying, where they really don't exist, they don't care, they're not really fans of these series. And when there's a new IP that gives them everything that the modern day audience would want, they're not there. Concord, for example, we had mentioned Dustborn or Flintlock, all these games that don't have no brand recognition to save their lives, I should say, rather. And we see what happens. You have these characters, you got the pronouns, you have pronouns for fucking robots, you have trans characters, you have alien looking characters, all these weird, goofy, terrible looking characters. I mean, this looks like something that a group of people on Tumblr would create and try to sell you on, because it's absurd. It shows you, back to what that bimbo fucking bitch was saying on X, the former developer for the studio, which is weird. You know, you're praising the game and then it's like you're still not even in the studio for when it releases. So what the hell happened there? But she's praising the game, talking all this smack, talking about people are talentless freaks. When, you know, you look at the characters, you look at everything, what the game stands for, it just shows you what their motivations are. It shows you who these people really are. When they're trying to tell you that, no, you're the freaks, they display it themselves with the games they create and also the features that they implement or the things that they remove and replace with, such as they remove male and female and they put body type A and B, or anything else like that, or they add pronouns to something else, and all this other dumb shit that so many people try to brush on their rug or try to dismiss, when it's obvious what they're doing. It's social engineering. They're trying to blur the lines between male and female. They're trying to blur the lines with so many other common social norms, because they want to change. Basically what Mary Jane in Spider-Man 2 has said at the end was that what she said, the new normal. They're trying to incorporate the new normal into everything, so that way everyone can see it as just being normal when it's not.
And, you know, to your point about blurring the lines between male and female and social engineering and stuff, that's why, you know, when people say, why does it matter? Why do you care? I mean, it matters because it matters to them, obviously. It matters to them. You know, they care about pushing this and shoving this stuff down your throats. So my thing would be like, why is it so important that they do this? Why does it hurt so many people's feelings that men and women exist and that they're not the same? Why does it bother so many people? So again, you know, you can look at it like, People can say whatever they want. They can say, oh, why do you care? I think that it's important that people do care, because they're trying to change norms in a way that is gonna affect, they're trying to control how people think. They're trying to shove narratives in people's heads and push them in whatever direction they want to go for whatever purposes they want to go in. And I think anytime that you try to manipulate people away from thinking for themselves, that's a red flag, and those are times where there's questions that have to be asked. Because again, if it doesn't matter, why are they doing it? And why doesn't it matter to you? Why are you so weak or easily fooled where you're letting them where you're letting them blur the lines between men and women and try to hide the fact that, hey, these aren't the same? Why do they want to do that? There's a bunch of questions you can ask, but it's unnatural a lot of times. And again, even from a standpoint of gameplay and story and narrative, why are these things taking so much focus off of an actual intriguing plot, an actual intriguing story, intriguing gameplay? Why does that take precedence over that? A lot of times, if they did this in a more subtle way or didn't shove it down your throat, they might actually get away with it. But because they're so on the nose, and you have entire games that are centered around this shit, aka Dustborn, aka Concord, of course people are gonna ask questions. People aren't as dumb as these companies will have you believe. And people also don't have to like BS narrative. They don't have to like it. People don't have to like bad games because it hurts someone else's feelings that they don't like it. And that holds true for anything. If you don't like God of War because you don't like the gameplay, that's fine. If you don't like Concord because it has a bunch of woke BS in there, then that's a valid reason too. Because it does affect the narrative, it does affect the character designs, which is clear as day. Look at Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. You think that Mr. Freeze design wasn't heavily influenced by DEI? It's like when people say they're tired of the word woke. People are tired of the word woke. Well, tell these companies to stop doing it. People shouldn't be obligated to not use a word because you're tired of it. Fuck you. They're allowed to hate it. They're allowed to not like it. They're allowed to call something what it is. So in the end of the day, I'm not surprised Concord failed. I'm not surprised that Dustborn failed. I think more games will fail. I think some games with DEI will do well, but because they're connected to series. So we'll see how Silent Hill 2 does. We'll see how Dead Rising does. We know Capcom games get a pass from people because, they put as much DEI and shit in there as they want, but it doesn't matter to people because it's the new Resident Evil, it's the new whatever. So again, we can live in fantasy land and pretend this stuff sells and that people don't really care about it, but then you look at original games that have it, they fall to the ground, they get buried in the dirt. Then you look at other games that are the opposite, Stellar Blade, Black Myth, somehow they're doing well. These are objective facts, and people can be as mad as they want, but it's the reality. It turns out DEI only sells when it's connected to something people already love, but then people end up hating it, and then it dies too. So give Capcom a few more years. Yeah, sure, it's not as aggressive as other game companies, but they're doing it. Capcom's doing it, and it's gonna eventually bite them in the ass too. We saw EA try to pull that narrative, and look what happened to them. Look at what happened with Dead Space Remake. It was subtle, but people weren't having it. So it is what it is, And again, to the people tired of the word woke, they're tired of the word DEI. Well, you know what? Kiss my ass. Because in the end of the day, they're gonna keep on doing this stuff anyway, and people have a right to talk about it and not like it. Period. You don't control language just because you're tired of reality. And as long as reality is reality, then it should be spoken on. So anyway, those are my final thoughts on it.
Yep, you hit the nail on the head on so many things. You said it better than I could, and you're right. Eventually, people are gonna catch on and gonna notice what a lot of us already have noticed for a while, and the companies that used to get away with it eventually won't, because a few years ago, I'm pretty sure a game like Dustborn and Concord would have done better than it has. But since people are more aware and are sick and tired of what's going on, they are quick to reject it. And I think that's a good thing. That's a great thing, actually, because this is the gamers, real gamers, taking control back. Because the developers think, and these publishers as well, and also the journalists, because journalists are also having meltdowns whenever these games fucking flop, and Concord's no different. But we're taking control back, and the journalists and developers and publishers, for a long time, even now, a lot of them now still, have this sense of this arrogance about them where they feel like they are always in control. They control how we think, what we purchase, our opinions, what we get excited for, what we don't get excited for. And that's not gonna fly anymore for a lot of people. For a lot of us, yeah, we had control over this shit for a long time. We spoke with our wallets years ago, but more people, it seems like day after day, year after year, more people are seeing what's really going on. It's like their masks are off now, and people are seeing them for what they are. They're activist hacks. They're indoctrinated, spineless buffoons, solely interested in ESG funds and meeting DEI quotas, all to stay afloat. But the quality and also the identity of a lot of these franchises and companies end up going away because they're more interested in identity politics, ideologies, social engineering, all the above, the usual shit that would align with woke, because that's what it is wokeness brought on by the woke mind virus that so many studios have, even other companies outside of gaming, just in general. So many people have really fallen victim to this blatant lie, this delusion that's been spreading all over the world, not just in the US, but unfortunately it has gotten to so many studios, so many individuals in general, and it's unfortunate. But the good thing is that people are waking up, are noticing what's going on, and they're speaking up. They are finding their voice. They are saying no. They are walking away. They're rejecting the bullshit that they're being fed, and they're basically telling you, no, fuck you, fuck off. I don't want this. I demand better. I deserve better, and I expect better, because we should. Concord failing is a great thing. Don't let anyone try to gaslight you into thinking that it's not. Because if this game would have succeeded, we would have had more terrible games like this, whether if it was a multiplayer game, single player game, doesn't matter. We would have gotten more of this. The more these games succeed, the worse we're going to be. But once they keep failing and failing, the message that we're sending to them, because they love sending messages to us, they love sending messages in their games to us all the time for years now. Now we're sending our message to them that we don't want this shit. So that's all we really had to say. Links will be in the description for our Jenpachi channel, and where you can also follow me or wherever. But let us know what you think about Concord or any of the games that we had mentioned in the video, or just the state of gaming currently. But that's going to be it for us. Peace.